Bhutani Sarvani Vayuktani Shrutani Me Viryani Nanta Viryasya Statra Kritancho. King Parikshit said, My Lord, Shukadeva Goswami, you have elaborately described all the periods of the various manus, and within those periods, the wonderful activities of the Supreme Personality Godhead who has unlimited potency. I am fortunate to have heard all of this from you. Text 2 and 3. Satyavrata, the saintly king of Dravida Desh, who received spiritual knowledge at the end of the last millennium by the grace of the Supreme, later became Vivasvata Manu, the son of Vivasvan in the next Manvatar, period of Manu. I have received this knowledge from you. I also understand that such kings as Ikshvaku were his sons, as you have already explained. There's a lot of verses without commentary, so I'm just going to say a little something. Om Jnanatimrandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuramritam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manavishram Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Viramayam Dharati Swakadantikam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Radha Shiva Sri Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Guru Divacharam Pampumangate Girim Kripadamaram Bande Sri Bhurim Taranam Paramanandam Aravam Sri Chaitanyeshwaram Vanchakalpaturvischa Kripasindhuvidesha Paridanam Kavinyo Vaishnavyo Namaha. So a couple of years back I was in Govardhan, Vrindavan, and I was walking with one of my mentors, Burijan Prabhu. And he told me, Navina, there's something I wanted to tell you for the last 2 years. Naturally, I was a little attentive because if one of your teachers says there's something I wanted to tell you for 2 years, you know, how long can you keep something in your mind, you know? 2 minutes? 2 seconds? 2 days? For 2 years, huh? So, he said, now is the most important time of your life because you're investing in your foundation. Whatever you do right now will be the foundation of what you're going to accomplish in your life. So my mind was thinking, well, back then I was probably around 52 or something like that. But still working on the foundation. Okay, that's interesting. That's good to know. So then he asked, so there's 3 things that we have to know. Number 1, who am I? Which is in the Vedic epistemology, you have Sambandha, Videya, and Prayojana. Sambandha is knowledge about identity and relationship. Avideya is the process of interaction, how we interact. And then Prayojana, what's the goal? Like here, we are in Goloka Ashram. So what is the goal? You want to go to Goloka, right? You want to go back to Krishna's pastimes. So you have to have goals in life. I mean, there are intermediary goals, you know, pass the exam, don't lose the job. Pay for the car. That's intermediary goals. But then there are long-term goals. Okay, and we get to that. So number 1, who am I? I'm a servant. Most problems arise in life because we are not clear about sambandha. We're not clear about identity and about relationship. Have you noticed that relationships can be over pretty fast if you don't know who you are and who the other person is? If that's not clear, there's no real sambandha. There's no real relationship. So, if I take myself to be a master, a controller, an enjoyer, somebody very important, have you ever been somewhere and somebody said, don't you know who I am? You know that situation? Always sounds funny, right? Always makes me laugh. Somebody in a store or in an airport says, don't you know who I am? And I'm like, yeah, you're nobody, you know? And this flight just left and you can't go, you know? So, then number 2, who is there in my, this is a little cryptic or sutra, you know, fast forward, but you get it because time is something very interesting that you can't really grasp. So then what is my contribution? No, who occupies the sacred space of my heart? In other words, if you have a relationship, there's me and then there's that significant other person. So who is that significant other person? Who is there in the sacred space of my heart? Well, it can be Krishna, it can be Guru, it can be Prabhupada, it can be whoever you want it to be. It can be Mickey Mouse, you know, it can be it's up to you. Who do you put in your heart? Because it's a private thing. It's a thing of the heart. So no one can tell you, who's your Ishtadev. That's your own choice. That can't be legislated by anyone because it's freedom of choice. And then number 3, this is a little reverse. Okay, Sambandha, then Prayojana. Okay, who's my goal? And then number 3, Abhideya, the process. What's my contribution? Like, what do I want to leave behind? What's my legacy? With what do you want to be remembered? Okay, most of us are still fairly young. We think like, oh, it's a little early to talk about, my swan song, my legacy, But yeah, now we're laying the foundation for that. Whatever we do right now is foundational. So, and I thought that was memorable, so that's why I'm sharing it with you. And then I added a 4th one, what am I willing to do or to sacrifice in order to achieve my contribution, in order to achieve my legacy. And so initially, again, it's getting through the day, through the week, through the year, through the decades, but after a while, we'll see that time is conspicuous by its absence when we practice spiritual life, because we realize I'm Satchidananda, I'm eternal. I'm actually wise, and I'm actually blissful. But then I go to school, and I become an idiot, because they tell me a whole bunch of stuff that's just creating a lot of noise in my head, and it aggravates me. Then you go to university, and then you become a certified idiot, where they give you a diploma that says, my dear sir, now you're a certified idiot. By the way, you owe us 375,000 euros, and now go out into the world and be a nice guy, okay? Be a good person now. And that's why you have a lot of people who are in debt, either to their parents, to the state, or morally in debt, bankrupt. And they have guns, scalpels, and very smart reasoning, and then you expect them to do good things for themselves and for others. It's not going to happen. It's going to be a very messy situation. So, how to navigate through this? I was just giving a few lectures in San Marcos, in Lima, Peru, which is the oldest university in the Americas. Here, this is presumably the oldest one in the world. Have not yet done my research, but one person in Santo Domingo said, no, it's not San Marcos. We're the oldest university. I said, yeah, but you guys had gaps of hundreds of years where nothing went on. San Marcos started and it continued, whereas you guys had a lot of gaps. So, history is a different bird. And Professor Polo asked me to speak about the ethics of the Bhagavad Gita and the epistemology. So that was an interesting topic. And I saw that even though these were undergrad students in philosophy, they had very little understanding of the basics, of the hermeneutics, like the foundational things, like this is a phone, this is a sofa. If I call this a phone and I call this a sofa, we got a problem, right? So you have to define the terms before you can actually get to the working stage. And that is very nicely done in the Vedas. That's why Veda means knowledge. And no one has a monopoly on knowledge, like no one has a monopoly on stupidity. Not the Americans, not the Russians, not the Arabs, not the Swiss. It's a globalized phenomenon. In a similar way, knowledge or wisdom is universally available because Krishna has disseminated knowledge in different times, through different cultures and different traditions. Now, of course, everyone wants to claim the Holy Grail, like God was born in Florence, right? Or in Tamil Nadu, right? Or in the Swiss Alps. Because why? Because I'm born there. And because that's naturally the Holy Land, right? Because I'm born there. And that's why it has to be the most important place, like the umbilical, the umbilical, the center of the universe. But I'm sorry to inform you, Namisaranya is the center of the universe. That's the hub, and around that everything is revolving. But humor aside, nobody has a monopoly on knowledge. So, but the different ways of how to ascertain knowledge, there's avaroha panta, there's the ascending path and the descending path. So in the Western approach, you start with yourself and you try to go as high as you can. You know, you try to explore what's out there. But you start with yourself. Why? Because that's all you know, and that's the center of the universe. It's I, me, and mine. You've heard of those three? I, me, and mine? So, but in the Vedic or in the traditional approach, it's the other way around. It's the descending. You start with divinity, with God, and then from there on, you take it down to your level. It's a different approach. Both have their pros and cons, but we have our limitations because we are flawed. We are flawed with mistakes, have imperfect senses. Like, I don't know what our neighbor downstairs is thinking when they're chanting. You know? I can't know. It's beyond me. And so on. I do make mistakes. Of course, some people are never wrong, but they're not always right. So, has it happened to you that you have made mistakes in your life? Yeah?
Yes.
Error is human, right? It can happen, even to the best. And then we have imperfect senses. I can't really see much, about 30-40% of the room. The rest is just beyond. And then number 4, okay, we already have that one. No, we make mistakes. Then tendency to cheat. We are under illusion also. Sometimes we don't want to pay for the public transport. Has this ever happened to you?
Yeah, recently.
Yeah, you're all very honorable citizens here. But sometimes we have that tendency that we like to think that, laws and street signs, they're just suggestions, you know, like it's just, like in India, it's just free-flowing chaos, right? But everybody believes that you're eternal. So eventually karma does catch up with you. So, that's why the ascending process is flawed, because my faculties are flawed, and even though you may have super telescopes and super microscopes, the way how you interpret data and the way how you contextualize data is flawed. Most people start out with the end in mind, which means they already made up their mind on what the conclusion is, and now they're retracking their steps and trying to substantiate their case, which in science is not really allowed because it's not scientific. you have to actually go a different way, a different route. So we are following the descending path. We're accepting knowledge that is handed down through tradition. And of course, there are always interpretations, there are always different versions of the same text, but in general, they will agree. So then the question comes to, all right, who are my teachers, my guides, my mentors, my friends? Well, they become revealed. They're the practitioners. You have Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. We're not asking you to subscribe to some totalitarian concept, but you can actually ascertain the truth if you take the consensus of Guru, the teacher, or the teachers, because they're plural, there are many of them, then the sadhus, which are the practitioners. Who are they? Well, voila, here they are, in whatever discipline, whether it be sports, science, philosophy, or spirituality. And then Shastra, the scripture, the texts. And if the three are in line, they say the same thing, you got a winner. Bingo, you know, like our friends next door playing, you know. So, and then you can actually move forward. And no one can legislate faith. Where you replace your faith, your heart, is a personal matter. We all agree to the principle of how we ascertain knowledge and how we navigate, but then there is something called personal choice, personal preference. Like you may like Lord Vitala, somebody else may like Balaji, somebody else may like this one, that one. Of course, as far as tattva goes, we can, as truth goes, we can explain how everything features in. But then as far as rasa goes, somebody likes tiramisu, and for them that is the ultimate. But somebody else may say, I like lasagna much better, you know, for me that is the ultimate. how can you argue? Gustibus non estis gustandum. You can't argue about taste. You speak Latin?
No.
Huh?
No one speaks this shit.
No one speaks it, right? But everybody
He knows it though.
everybody claims it. So you can't argue about taste, you know. I was in Nigeria. I met a guy who was working for Nestle, one of the bigger food corporations, and the biggest. Their goal is to sell 1 billion products a day. That's 1,000 million products a day. That's a lot of stuff. And so I asked him, so what is the most popular flavor in Nigeria? And he said, you won't believe it. It's slightly rotten, you know, a little pungent, like a little gone off, a little gone bad. So they artificially, synthetically create that flavor and add it to soups, sauces, etc. Like, did you know that cigarettes in certain countries have chocolate additives? Because chocolate, cacao, is a drug. It's a substance that makes you, you know, gives you that buzz, that, yeah, this is nice, I'm feeling happy. So they're adding that flavor to tobacco to hook people, especially kids, on that kind of stuff. Didn't know that, right? Yeah, they're paying millions to scientists, psychologists, and food engineers how to make sure that you get hooked. I have friends in the Bay Area who are working on game development. Did you know that games, video games, are bigger than music, movies, theater, and all that stuff put together? Bigger, more money in games. And of course, if you want to sell kids hardware and software that costs thousands of dollars, you have a very short time, a very short attention span. How long is the attention span of a kid?
Seconds.
About the attention span of goldfish. Did you have a goldfish? Okay. Did you ever go to an aquarium and go doop, 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 doop? Have you ever done that? You should. Otherwise, you had a miserable childhood. You know, your childhood is not finished yet. You know. So never stop learning and exploring. You go there, you go tuk tuk tuk, and then the fish comes, and in one moment is gone because his only interest is there food? No food? I'm gone. So kids, same thing. Either it's sugar or it hits my, you know, that dopamine, you know, that thing, and or else they're gone. So you got one moment to hook people on video games. So they pay psychologists to figure out how to engineer this thing that immediately they're hooked. Because otherwise, after 5 seconds, they'll go and play someone else's game, and you lost a lifetime addict who will give you money for a very long time. And that's just not acceptable. So, what am I hooked on? Where do I get my dopamine, my endorphin? Is it Krishna or is it something else? Practice is what happens when no one's watching. So like here we're practicing and we're trying to develop our taste for spiritual activity. And that will help us to overcome our other types of afflictions and attractions. Now one thing that helps to do that is, and I'm sorry to bring this up, to get up early. I know you think I don't have enough time, I need to work, I need to study, I need to, you know, do a million things, my room's a mess, my life's a mess. If you want to get more stuff done, get up early, okay? And early may mean 6 o'clock, it may mean 5 o'clock, it may mean whatever, but before the sun gets up. And you say you don't have enough time? You want some extra time? Set your alarm clock. And there, voila, there it is. Your extra 2 or 3 hours. It's there. This machine needs 6 hours of sleep. If this machine drives cars or works computers, you may need 7 or even 8 hours of sleep. So go to bed early and get up early. And voila, there is your time. Where you can read, you can chant, you can do yoga, you can paint, you can dance, you can do whatever you want before the world wakes up. You're supposed to be the intellectuals, you're supposed to be the teachers, you're supposed to be the Brahmins. I mean, that's what it means to go to university. That means you have to be 5 steps ahead of your audience. But that means you get up a little earlier. You can't just roll out of bed and go to an exam. That may work in primary school, you know. That works still somewhat in secondary school. But from university level onwards, it gets a little more difficult, right? So you have to do a little better than that. So we talked about a few topics. This is not supposed to be a big lecture. Krishna is all attractive. If I am putting myself into connection with Krishna through this transcendental sound vibration, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Then that eternal love story, that eternal relationship of love will develop, and it will become very strong, it will become very substantial. And the things of this world that seem right now to be very, very attractive, or very distractive, or very, you fill in the adjectives, will diminish in their power. There's something called sonification. Did you know that you can purify something through sound? You just like you can do operations with laser, and high sound can actually unstick stuff that's stuck, because sound is very powerful. And that's what we're basically doing by this chanting method. And not only that, we're developing a natural attraction for Krishna, which we have forgotten about. And that is a very, very joyful process. Susukam kartumaviyam, the process is joyfully performed. So we're not here to give you more pain and more headache. That getting up early and keeping clean and doing this and doing that. No, we're actually learning tools of how to, these are tools of how to live a free and happy life. Like you hear about regulative principles, don't do this, don't do that, don't do that. It actually means being free from all these type of distracting activities. Just like right now, you're in school, you're a student, and if you have an addiction, you realize how debilitating it is, no matter what the addiction might be, because it always occupies your mind. You're always like, when can I do this? How can I do this? How can I afford this? How can I make it happen? So it's constantly taking away your bandwidth, your RAM, and you miss out on that. And it's, on many levels, just compromising your integrity. So when I'm free from that addiction, I realize, hey, I'm actually a Sukhi Nara, I'm a happy human, I'm actually a happy person. And that's a good starting point. Sarve Sukhino Bhavantu. Everyone should be happy. Are you happy, or are you happy? In India, they don't say very happy, they say usually happy, right? Happy.
You only have a biscuit in the name.
Huh?
You only have a cookies in the name, happy.
Happy, yeah, I knew that must be a cookie brand. Man, they already came up with it. They ruined my idea, you know? Another, yeah. So, follow your own bliss. What's your own bliss? That's Ananda. That's Krishna. Krishna's love is there in our heart. We just have to rediscover it. Krishna Suya Sama Maya Haya Andakara Yam Krishna Maya Adhikara. So when the Krishna sun rises, all the fog, all the obscurity, like it was pretty dark last night. Did you notice? It's very funny because tonight I'm going to Iceland, and it's way up north, you know, and you see the northern lights, and the sun never sets, and people party all night, and they like that kind of stuff. But then it's also kind of wacky because you can't really sleep and you don't really get rest. And then in the southern hemisphere, the opposite. So make sure that the Krishna sun shines in your life, and no one will be able to touch you. Ignorance, passion will still exist, but they will have much less effect on you. Questions, comments, or reflections?
Yes, I have a question. Because we live in the city, and you have experience of city life also, because you're from San Francisco, based in India. Ciao, Haribol.
Haribol. Thank you for showing up.
Thank you. Have a good day.
So as a mantra, aversion doesn't work, attraction is stronger than aversion. If I'm trying to negate stuff, that's very difficult. But attraction is much more strong. Yeah, we live in the big bad city, and in comparison to San Francisco, Bologna is a nice little sattvic, peaceful village, you know. So, how to do about it? You have to have a sadhana, you have to have a spiritual practice. There's no way around it. Otherwise the modes will push you in the corner and will beat you up every day, you know. Like when you do boxing, you've seen boxing? I know you're not boxers. You look like a bit of an athlete. Do you play ball or you're just tall? What do you do?
What?
Sports.
No, I just work out at home.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's...
It's intellectual. Studies a lot. PhD.
So,
Future.
don't let anyone push you in a corner and beat you up, okay? When you get hit, then you have to bounce back, okay? You may take a hit every now and then, you know, you trip, you fall, something happens, but you gotta bounce back. But you can only bounce back if you have gravitas. You know? Gravity.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen these dolls with the big base and then you push them down and whoop, they come back up, you know? They always come back up. Why? Because their center is very low. Like in martial arts, your framework, the way how you position yourself is much more important than how strong your arms are. Because if you have a strong framework, if you're grounded, no one can trip you over and you are very agile. So that means I have to be connected to the hub, to the center, to the root of existence. The eye of the storm is the only quiet place. Everything else will get crushed by the Kala Chakra. No matter how smart, how fast, how wealthy, how knowledgeable you are, everything will be destroyed by time. So, but if I connect myself with eternity, then I'm on a different time scale. I'm a Krishna's time scale. Just like Yamaraj, the Lord of Death, he's got everyone's number, and he will get everybody eventually. There's only one way how to escape Yamaraj. It's if you do kirtan, because Yamaraj likes kirtan. So then he'll come and he'll participate in the kirtan. And as long as the kirtan goes on, Yamaraj won't touch you, because he's in ecstasy, chanting and dancing. As long as you hear the Bhagavatam, he won't touch you, because you're connected to eternity. But as soon as I start identifying with the things of this world, then I become compromised. And then Durga starts, exerting her force upon me. So get up early, have a spiritual program, and try to cultivate the mode of goodness just by your lifestyle. There's always choices. And sometimes in the name of research, we jump down rabbit holes. Have you ever jumped down a rabbit hole? You know what rabbit holes are? I don't mean literally in the field that you jump into a rabbit hole, but it's like this morning, because you're using certain expressions like La Divina Commedia. So then you think, okay, what is this book all about? Okay, Dante, he wrote it, fine, I know a few basics. Then you you look Wikipedia, you go to the next thing, and 3 hours later, you're like, where did this start? Huh? Has this ever happened to you? Or is it just me? And sometimes it's like, this is totally unrelated, Like, I went way off track. So you have to be able to backtrack your steps. And that requires a little bit of detachment. And that comes from knowledge and higher taste. That we recognize that I'm not in an ideal state right now. Just like rolling out of bed and running to school to write an exam is not where I want to be at. I can do better than that. And then, you realize, hey, maybe taking a shower and putting on a new shirt, it does add to the presentation, Like there's nothing wrong with that. And so in this way we learn certain life skills because we didn't grow up in Gurukul. I was in Dallas, Texas, and I went to distribute books, and there was a strip mall, which is a series of shops, and there was an astrologer there from Bangalore. He had all the pictures of all the different, deities and gods and all different kind of things, and because there's a lot of Indians there who want astrological help. So I went in there, I saw what he did, I appreciated him, and then yeah, he shared his heart with me, that the people are coming and he's giving them advice, but they're not following the advice. And and so he said, I went to Gurukul, I learned Sanskrit, I learned all the Vedas, I learned everything, and now people treat me like a car wash, you know, like a guy who's working at a car wash, you know, like a guy who's just, yeah, get the dirt off of me, you know, so I can go back and make more money and enjoy. So I said, yeah, they will forget every word you told them as soon as they walk out of your store, but you have to give them books so they can actually remember what you told them. He said, yeah, I need books. And he said, do you have books? I said, yeah, I have books. I do have books. I asked him, how many books you need? He said, I need a lot of books because so many people come here every day. So I told him, okay, you know, I got my truck outside, how many books you need?
Mm-hmm.
So I brought him a few cases, I filled his whole table with books. And because he recognized that just talking to people, people forget every word that you tell them. But if they have a book, they can actually look it up and they can remember it, and then it will gel. So then he asked, well, how much? And I said, hey, look, you went to Gurukul. I did something similar, so you're doing service, I'm doing service. I'm giving everything I have, you give whatever you can. So he pulled open his drawer, and this is like what normally only happens in dreams. He put his hand in there, grabs a whole stack of money, and hands it to me without counting it. $875, you know.
800.
$875, about 800 euros. So, next time around, next year I came back and visited him. And I said, so how is it going? And he says, very good, people like it, you know. They get my analysis, my talk, and I also give them a book as a gift. So I said, I brought something new, I brought another gift for you, you know. And I gave him the Bhagavatam, the CC, I gave him all the books, you know. And again, he was very generous. The point I'm making is that we need to have something substantial that is not changing, that is permanent. Otherwise, we don't have gravity, we don't have focus, and we don't have a real goal. All our goals, like getting through the week, acing the exam, getting married, having 3 kids, making and spending a few million, all that stuff is going to be over pretty fast, you know. I'm 55 now. I'm in the second half, you know. I started out when I was 15 with Krishna consciousness. Now you may say that's very early, but according to Vedic, you should start before your conception. You know, like parents, you know, Garbhadana Sanskara and Kamaramacha Pragyo, at least when you're 5, you should get serious. Like in the Vedic, they say, okay, first 5 years you can spoil the kid, you know, they can do anything they want. But then from 5 to 15, you have to be strict, you have to discipline, you have to actually teach them something. And then from 15 onwards, you have to make friends, because you can't keep them tight, otherwise the relationship breaks. So, it goes pretty fast. So now what? Now it's time for, okay, what's my legacy project? What's my contribution that people will remember me by? So I had mentors, I had teachers who were very generous with me, who shared not just their time, but their heart, and who had the honesty to also share their struggles, their difficulties. And those teachers are more memorable to me than the ones who claim to be perfect and, you know, they were just flying high. Because I can appreciate perfection, but I can relate more with struggle. That's that resonates more with me. So, and that's what keeps me going. And I'm very excited to see that there is this Bhakti center, this Christian, you know, Goloka, St. Shankara Vaikuntha, and Goloka ashram. I have an ashram like this in San Francisco. Someone's watching?
No, yeah, someone's watching. Ananda Lokashram. Ananda Lokashram.
Okay. And yeah, we did the same thing in San Francisco. And the main struggle was how to get people to get up, how to keep clean, and follow programs, and cook something sattvic, not just buy stuff and throw it down your throat while you're rushing to catch the bus. So those are the main struggles. And rules don't really work so well with young adults. So it's more a matter of taste. If you show people that having a spiritual program is tasteful, it's just joyful, you know, you get up and you sing and dance. Then the rest of the day is the bonus track, you know, it's playgroup. I already got my Ananda because I was in Ananda ashram. So now whatever else happens in the day, that's the encore, that's the extra. But if I run out into the world to look for love, to look for validation, to look for happiness, to look for success, man, you're gonna get slaughtered. You gotta get it. It's gonna be a miserable ride. So don't do this to yourself. Have a life, have a spiritual life. And then be the best you can be. People think I do spirituality, oh, you know, I could be so much better in science, sport, and business. I disagree. I went to school, and then I was mainly engaged in sports. And then at 15 I joined the ashram, and I was a monk for 15 years, a brahmachari. And then Krishna gave me everything, you know, business, family, kids, company, success, this, that, in very short time. Why? Because I saw it for what it was. So, and then you can deal with things properly. Otherwise you get too involved. You get too deeply involved, you start identifying, you become very possessive, and then you can't really do big things. Because big things means teamwork. Just like tomorrow is Radhastami, Srimati Radharani's appearance day. Did you know that? And so, we are aspiring to be part of her team. You know? Shri Radhe, Lakshmi, you know, Shakti. Tomorrow is her appearance day. So people they want the energy, but they don't want to deal with the energetic, with, you know, with Vishnu or with Krishna. So basically they end up with Durga. They end up with the very severe form. But in order to be part of Srimati Radharani's team, I have to be a team player. If you want to do big things in science, in sports, or in spirituality, you need to be a team player. That means team compatible. That means your success is my success because it's a team success. And your struggle is my struggle because it's a team struggle. And if I can't help you to be better in what you do, we're not going anywhere. Because the chain is as strong as its weakest link. I had to close that ashram down because I was tired of dealing with homesick Indian kids who need to get married, or who their parents want to force them to get married, and I have to be the counselor. And you know, it's a game. It's a fight you can't win. You can't win that fight, you know. So you have to choose your battles. If you don't like the game, don't play it. Find a different game. So I'm going around and I'm just doing what I can. So we all have to come to terms with our insignificance, and at the same time, when we invest into others, Krishna will empower you to actually be part of something massive, something cosmogonal, something that not only changes individuals' lives, but it also has great impact. Like Prabhupada, he was here for a very short time. He spent a little over 10 years in the West. Yet his impact is felt more and more in all sections of society because he left behind a legacy. He left behind something monumental. Why? Because he got up at midnight and he translated 6 pages. And he walked the talk. He showed by acharya, by example, what it means to actually be a spiritual person. Whereas a lot of people will say, do as I say, but don't do as I do, or buy my t-shirt, or sign up for my premium course, and that's that. So we got to go a little deeper into that. And then getting through school or getting, through, that's easy. That's all easy stuff. But how to be actually allowed entrance into Srimati Radharani's team, that is really what we should be aspiring for. And it requires mercy. Because you can't bulldoze your way into Bologna. You need to, there's a passive grace. You have to have people who recognize you. We would like to have you on the team. You know what I mean? So if you want to raise in whatever discipline it is, try to think along the lines of, how can I serve? The more service you have, the higher your security clearance. The more resources, the more realizations, the more opportunities you will get. So, what is my service? There's plenty of service. Like you got an ashram, you got to keep it clean. You got a center. You got, okay, you have your studies, but don't be a minimalist. You can do more than that, Writing a few papers and getting a degree. That's, it's not the end of the world, Life is what happens when you're not in school. So, at some point, of course, school's never over, but at some point, we'll realize that all this thing that transpires on this level is very short. It's a very short period. There's a bigger time scale, and the more I connect myself with Krishna, I can appreciate things in the proper context. And you'll be able to do these things like this, because they're not that difficult. But how to touch people's hearts and inspire them to be part of Srimati Radharani's team, that's the real challenge. That's really where the crux of the matter is. But meanwhile, you do the best you can and, go through your Divina Commedia. We all have our trajectory. If you want to go fast, travel alone. If you want to go far, find a few good friends. So that's what we're trying to create here. And I'm very happy to see that in a seedling state it is happening. I would love to see more Bhakti Club and more such activities also on campus and off campus. Because this is the time when people are still considering options. After 35, it's more, I'm going to pay my mortgage and keep my job and make a vice president. Because a third kid is on the way, and school's expensive. There are other type of... Now you still have a little bandwidth that you can play with. Afterwards it gets pretty narrowed down. So it's a good time. Tato Brahma Jigyasa. Sanskrit, you speak, right?
No.
Now is the time to inquire about what is really important. So we don't end up barking up the wrong tree. We don't end up doing someone else's homework. We don't end up getting too distracted by all the stuff that seems seemingly attractive. Short question, long answer. Any other points? I don't want to keep you too long. I know you've got lives to live. Any other topic, issue, concern? Anandasham. Everyone's rolling in bliss. Yes.
Thank you for this inspiring lecture. I feel nourished by your realizations. What about relationships, and especially with your family, since they are not spiritualists, they are very much the opposite? How to not get much influenced by their energy and negativity? How to give them love? How to show them some hope in spirituality?
By your good example. People don't listen very well. Have you noticed?
Mm-hmm.
Watch very close. It's a visual world. So for them, you're still that little girl, ran around and did whatever you did, So that paradigm will never change. But they will appreciate it by your actions. So be kind to them, give prasadam, be respectful, and every now and then there are a couple of teachable moments, but they are very short, usually, very short. And usually it's non-verbal. As some famous saint from Assisi once said, you should always preach and sometimes you should also speak. So we talked a lot. It's more about our example, and we have to be santush, you have to be self-satisfied, you have to be blissful in your own way. If I'm lacking and I'm still looking for validation or for resources or support or acknowledgement, this world has a way of disappointing us. Have you noticed? And the world is doing a good job, right? Undank ist der Weltenlohn. Speak German?
No.
Ungratefulness is the reward of the world, you know? But if I am content in my own spiritual practice, I'm not going out into the world to get anything from anyone. And I'm also, you see, Prabhupada was very well appreciated because he, besides of his spiritual stature, he didn't have an inferiority or a superiority complex. And that's really helpful because if people feel that you're talking down to them or you're talking up to them, it's kind of weird. And weird people will appreciate those kind of weird scenarios, but normal people won't. They want to see you eye to eye. They want some reality, some realism. And that can only happen if you're real. So keep it real. Don't think I'm now flying high and holy because I've been practicing for a few months or for a couple of years. As I mentioned yesterday, I used to tell people I'm a monk, and they would ask me, does your mom know you're here? So, I may not have all the answers. That's perfectly fine. Just tell them. Be honest. And that will be more powerful than pretending to know it all. And you can share your own journey, and that will be authentic, and that will be attractive. Or you can claim to be the best, and the smartest, and the most humble. And the Americans will like that, but the rest of the world doesn't like that so much. Different mentalities, different mindsets. So you have to know who's your audience. And family, parents, siblings, just be nice with them and give them things that they can appreciate. And give them some updates and, good news, but they're usually not subscribing to philosophy, to logic, to preaching, because water doesn't flow this way, it flows that way. And we're in a different age group. You just have to accept that. But Krishna is in their heart. He can reach them. Prayers always reach them. And it's a long shot. It's a long game. It doesn't go overnight, But as we are going our journey and struggling, so are they going their journey and struggling. So eventually they will see some similarities and they will come to appreciate your choices and your lifestyle. But don't expect miracles overnight. It will take time. It will take time. I know that doesn't solve this scenario, but it may give you a little context how to deal with it. And don't be impatient and think that it's the wrong approach. Other points? Yeah, there was one lady in Yekaterinburg, Urals, Russia. Mama Russia. I used to visit for 25 years these countries. So she's an old lady. She got into Krishna consciousness. She became very serious. Her whole family thought grandma has gone local. She's gone totally pago, totally crazy, totally. But she was just adamant, serious. So one time she went to India. She took pictures of all her family members. She got a few kids, many grandchildren, nephews, nieces, this, that. And she took pictures from everybody. And she was intensely praying in all the holy places. She was putting these pictures, she laminated them, put them into the holy rivers and ponds. She was offering Mahaprasad, and she was just doing whatever she could. And when she came back, one by one, they became devotees. Just because of her sincerity, and also because she was a spiritual nightmare. She was very determined, very adamant to share her love in the form of prasadam and other kinds of. So the majority of her family became devotees. Okay, we got another day in paradise. It's a good day, the day of Krishna. And I pray to Sri Sri Radhamadava, Asasaki, Shishi Panchatattva, Shishi Paranishingadev, that they may fulfill all your spiritual desires, that they may remove all the obstacles on your path, and they will empower you to become a team player, to be part of Srimad Radharani's team, to touch the hearts of your family members and of your colleagues and of all the people in Bologna, and expand this into the world and the universe. Hari Om Tat Sat. Everyone who agrees with this prayer, in part or in whole, please unmute and say, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Navina Nirada Prabhu Ki. Ricordiamo anche,
Now that we solved all the problems of the world, we can go and look for our spoon.
no, volevo ricordare chi volesse oggi pomeriggio andremo con Prabhu, che è molto esperto nella distribuzione di libri, lo fa da 40 anni, uno dei migliori al mondo nella comunità ISKCON. Andremo in centro Bologna a imparare con lui, a provare con lui a distribuire i libri, sarà molto divertente, sarà estatico, è un'occasione veramente life changing.
What time?
Penso dopo pranzo,
What time?
non sono io a decidere, però penso dalle 3, sì, penso dalle 3 alle 6, dalle 3 alle 6, in qualsiasi momento qualcuno può sentire me o Tridas Prabhu o Krishna Loka, chiunque fosse interessato, e unirsi a noi. Saremo io, Martina, chi altro, Salvatore, Tridas, Krishna Loka, quindi non esitate a venire con noi. Grazie, buona giornata a tutti.
Hare